There comes a time when people were able to move to an unknown planet, but after a year, only 2 remain alive.
Something strange is happening there.
In the last decade of the 21st century, people landed on the moon, after which a hyperdrive was opened very quickly, thanks to which humanity began to colonize distant space. So, one of the ships of the United Planets Organization is heading for the planet Altair 4, where the first stellar expedition landed 20 years ago. But then something went wrong. There was no communication, and the crew did not return to Earth. And now a new mission must find out the fate of Earthlings and assist in colonization, because the found planet is of the Earth type. The air content there is completely suitable for people, and the gravity is even slightly lower. The ship makes an orbital flyby, but nothing indicating the presence of civilization is visible. And then Captain John Adams is informed that their ship is being scanned by radar. After that, the voice of a man who called himself Dr. Edward Morbius from the first expedition sounds in the control room. People are happy, so the expedition did not die. But Morbius very impolitely asks the ship to get away and in no case land on the planet. He warns of the deadly danger waiting for them on the planet. But the commander of the ship still asks for coordinates. He's going to land anyway, no matter what. The doctor gives up and names the landing area. The ship lands in a deserted area of the planet. People go outside and are surprised by the color of the sky and the unusual landscape around. But then a cloud of sand rises in the distance, and a cart with a robot driver drives up to the spaceship, who introduces himself as Robbie and very kindly invites people to visit his master. 3 Earthlings accept the invitation and go to the doctor's house. They are amazed by the magnificent structure and luxurious decoration inside. The doctor himself meets people on the threshold. The captain introduces him to his assistant Farman and the island's doctor. Morbius invites the men to dinner, cooked by Robbie, and then shows exactly how the robot synthesizes human food from the samples obtained. The doctor also has a waste disposal, which causes complete delight. Immediately, the doctor demonstrates Robbie's submission to any of his antics. The only thing he can't do is harm a person. As proof, the doctor asks the captain to give Robert his blaster and orders him to shoot the man. But the robot immediately shuts down. Morbius withdraws the order, otherwise Robbie will simply burn. After that, he shows the protection of his house, which he installed before he realized that he was completely safe here. So, he convinced the team that he was comfortable and not in danger, so that people could leave him alone and return to Earth. He says that all the other members of their expedition were literally torn apart by some invisible planetary force, and their ship evaporated when the last survivors tried to take off. Only Morbius and his wife somehow retained immunity. Only the woman later died of natural causes. And all these years Morbius feels the presence of this force somewhere nearby, although it does not bother him. At this moment, a very beautiful girl comes out to the guests, who turns out to be the doctor's daughter, Altera, whom he simply calls Alta. Naturally, this causes increased interest of men who have not seen women for a long time. The girl is very direct, because she has never seen young men. The captain's mate immediately begins to take care of Alta, and her father complains that they will still have to fly to Earth someday for the sake of their daughter's future. Men doubt her complete freedom here on Altair, but the girl does not understand what they mean, because she has a father and friends. To prove it, she blows a whistle and first roe deer come to the clearing, and then a Real tiger, behaving like a kitten. The doctor again insists on their departure, but the captain refers to the circumstances. He must receive an order from Earth. However, due to a small breakdown, the ship does not have a connection yet. And then Morbius is called upon to supply the Earthlings with the materials they need, which will significantly speed up the repair. The captain thanks for the courtesy, and the doctor points to the grave of his colleagues. He does not want to dig the same for Adams and his people. The next day, a car with Robbie and Alta arrives at the ship. The robot has brought the promised plates, and while he is unloading, Adams' assistant talks to Alta. Seeing that the robot is free, the cook of the expedition drags him behind the nearest rocks and asks him to reproduce a little hot stuff for him. Robbie gets a sample and wonders if 60 gallons is enough, which makes the guy excited. Meanwhile, Farman is trying to teach Alta the art of kissing, but the girl does not feel anything at all and does not understand what is good about it. Adams finds them and, having sent away an assistant, criticizes Altair for naivety and wearing revealing clothes that make her too attractive. The girl gets angry and complains to her father about the captain's rudeness, and he sends her to bed. But the girl calls Robbie to her and asks to make a new dress for her that is resistant to the human gaze. This night, the ship is guarded by 2 guards on duty. They hear strange noises, but they don't see anyone, although the doors open by themselves. In the morning, it turns out that an invisible attacker has disabled valuable equipment on board the spaceship, and now we will have to postpone the departure again. Adams orders the circular defense to be activated, and he and Ostrov go to Morbius' residence to discuss the invasion. But the doctor is busy, and Robbie asks him to wait. While waiting, the captain accidentally sees Altair floating. After she puts on a new, less revealing dress, Adams apologizes for his behavior towards her and kisses her. But then they are suddenly attacked by Alta's pet tiger, and Adams is forced to destroy it with his blaster. The girl is at a loss. What happened to her beast? The captain hurries into the house, and despite the ban, they enter Morbius' office, which turns out to be empty. Men find strange papers with incomprehensible hieroglyphs when the doctor enters the office through a secret door. He thinks it's time to explain everything, and begins the story. In ancient times, this planet was home to a powerful and highly developed Creel race. When they had curbed all the dangers on their planet, they naturally turned to the cosmos. That's when they visited Earth and brought here DNA samples of terrestrial animals. But suddenly this great nation died literally overnight. Their skyscrapers have collapsed, and nothing remains of the once powerful race. No one even knows what they looked like. The doctor takes them to a secret laboratory, where he demonstrates a device that greatly enhances intelligence. Morbius used it, after which he barely survived, but his intellectual abilities doubled. And then he demonstrates a machine with which you can recreate any creature living in the brain of the creator. The Earthlings are delighted with the car, and the island wants to repeat the doctor's act, but he warns him about the danger and tells him that the Creel machines are self-servicing and self-reproducing, so they do not look ancient at all. And then he puts the men in a shuttle car and drives them to a huge underground power machine that is still functioning and powered by 9,200 fusion reactors working together. Meanwhile, a force field is being installed around the ship, and people begin to feel calm. The cook asks permission to look for wild plants that can diversify their diet, and finds a huge pile of alcohol made for him by Robbie. And the military suddenly see how the fence closes from the fact that someone or something is trying to break in. But everything calms down, and no one notices the huge footprints leading inside the ship, from where a wild scream is soon heard. Meanwhile, Adams says that Morbius should share these discoveries with Earth, explaining that humanity is not yet ready to receive such unlimited power. But then the captain is informed about the death of the engineer and he hurries to the ship, and Morbius states, "It started again." Returning to the ship, Adams is shown a cast with a huge paw of an invisible creature that, according to all the laws of nature, cannot even exist. The team buries the deceased when Dr. Morbius and Alta arrive. He again warns of his premonition of further deadly attacks, and at night the invisible intruder returns. It enters the force field and becomes visible, outlined by the energy of the protective screen. The team opens fire with all blasters, but to no avail. The monster kills Farman and 2 other crew members, while in Morbius' house it will be Altera's screams. And when the man wakes up, the monster suddenly disappears. The girl complains to her father, and he calms Talta. He will be able to protect her. Meanwhile, the island again convinces the captain that the existence of such an organism contradicts all the laws of nature, and Adams orders the evacuation of Morbius and Alta to be prepared, because according to the charter he cannot leave civilians in danger. When reminded of the fate of the first ship, Adams decides that one of them will have to get into the laboratory and increase their intellectual level. He gives the order to take off at the slightest danger, and he and the island go to Morbius. But Robbie is standing on the threshold, who has received orders not to let anyone in. This order cancels Alta, who Adams tells about what happened, and while he tries to convince her to leave, Ostrov manages to get into the laboratory and use an intelligence booster, for which he pays with his life. Before his death, Ostrov manages to tell that the Creel machine can create anything with one thought. However, the Akrels forgot one more thing: monsters from ID. Morbius, who has entered, is furious. How could the island decide that its brains could withstand the might of the Creel intelligence? Alta, seeing her father like this, makes a choice and agrees to fly with Adams. The doctor says that ID is an outdated term for the basis of the subconscious state of the brain. It turns out that the monsters appeared from the subconscious. This destroyed the Creel civilization. They simply forgot about the subconscious passion for destruction and murder, and their animals freed themselves and began to exterminate everyone they met. And the monster that attacked the ship came from Morbius' subconscious. But he refuses to believe it until his house is attacked by an invisible creature that destroys the protective screens like paper. The doctor, Alta and Adams hide in the laboratory, and the captain provides clear evidence that it was Morbius' subconscious that dealt with his expedition after he increased his intelligence, but did not bother to learn how to control the new forces. And when he saw the new ship, he was just afraid that he would lose all power, and his ego came out again. The door melts under the blows of the monster, while Alta asks her father to help them avoid death. Morbius accepts the truth, confronts his second self and renounces him. The identification monster disappears, leaving Morbius mortally wounded. Finally, he orders Adams to activate the planetary self-destruct system, warning that the ship must be far away in deep space, and dies. At a safe distance, Adams, Alta, Robbie, and the surviving crew watched the union of Altair 4. Adams assures the girl that in about 1,000,000 years the human race will become the same as the Krells, and her father's name will be known to everyone, and people will remember that they are not gods after all. They embrace as their ship sets course for Earth. The good old fiction, when people fly to another planet not for its natural resources, but to save Earthlings in trouble. And they destroy dangerous knowledge without looking at all their fabulous price.